Hello, welcome to Ventured Deep. In today's video, I'm going over the Megalodon, the ultimate predator, documentary for sleep. The Megalodon, the ultimate predator, a creature that lived millions of years ago, a shadow of power and mystery that once ruled the oceans of Earth. Tonight, as you let your eyes close and your breathing slow, you will drift with me back into that ancient sea, to a time before humans, before cities, before the world was shaped as we know it. A time when the oceans were warm, rich, alive with creatures both familiar and strange, and in those waters swam the ruler of them all, the giant known as Megalodon. Its very name means big tooth, and for good reason, for its teeth were enormous, serrated blades, longer than a human hand, each one a weapon designed to tear through flesh and bone. Imagine a shark so massive, so powerful, that it could grow as long as 60 feet, longer than a bus, larger even than many whales, and with jaws wide enough to swallow a small car whole. This was not an ordinary predator. This was nature, at its most magnificent and terrifying, a creature that hunted whales as easily as a modern shark hunts fish, a predator whose presence shaped entire ecosystems. Picture yourself now floating in calm, still water. The moonlight reflects softly on the surface, and the gentle rise and fall of the sea rocks you into peace. Beneath that quiet surface, however, another world unfolds, a world of currents and shadows, a world where the Megalodon once swam. It did not need to rush, for it had no rivals. It moved with slow, controlled power, every flick of its vast tail propelling it forward like a silent torpedo, every movement measured, every motion heavy with certainty. Its bite was the strongest in Earth's history, able to crush bones and skulls in a single strike. Its presence was enough to alter the behavior of all other creatures, for where the Megalodon swam, fear followed. And yet, as you drift deeper into relaxation, you understand that you are safe, because the Megalodon belongs to another time, another world. Its reign ended millions of years ago, and today it exists only in memory, in fossilized teeth buried in sand, in whispers of legend, in the imagination of those who dream of giants. And so, with each breath you take, imagine drifting deeper into that ancient ocean. Feel the weightlessness of your body, like a swimmer floating in the blue. Feel the silence around you, a silence as vast as the sea itself. The Megalodon swims through your mind, not as a threat, but as a symbol of awe. It reminds us of the power of nature, of the mysteries that lie hidden beneath the surface, of the life that came before us, and the life that will follow long after we are gone. The ocean keeps its secrets well, and among its greatest secrets is this giant predator who vanished into extinction. Some say changing climates ended its reign. Others believe new predators slowly replaced it. But whatever the reason, the ultimate predator faded away, leaving behind only shadows and silence. As you listen, as you breathe, as your body grows heavier and your mind lighter, you are floating with the memory of the Megalodon, safe.com, drifting in oceans of time. The great predator has passed, but the ocean remains, eternal, endless, lulling you into rest. Just as the sea rocks its waves, let your body rock into sleep. Just as the Megalodon ruled its world and then surrendered it to time, you too may surrender now, letting go of today, letting go of thought, and drifting into the deep calm where dreams swim like silent shadows in the sea. Part 1. The apex of the ancient Caesar title, whispered in the language of time, echoing across oceans that no longer exist, calling us back to a world long before our own. Tonight, as you close your eyes and let yourself drift, imagine the seas of Earth not as you know them now, but as they were millions of years ago. Oceans warmer, richer, teeming with life beyond imagination. Here, in these vast waters, power was not measured by machines or empires, but by tooth and scale, by speed and strength, by the unbroken chain of survival. And at the very top of this ancient order, above all others, swam the predators we call apex, the rulers of their time. Among them, the Megalodon, vast and unstoppable, with teeth like curved daggers, longer than a man's hand. Each one a reminder that the ocean itself once birthed giants to keep its balance. Imagine a creature so large it made whales tremble, a hunter whose presence turned seas into silent corridors of fear, whose shadow could eclipse the sunlight in shallow bays, whose strike could end even the greatest of prey with a single crushing bite. But the Megalodon was not alone in the story of the ancient seas. Long before its reign, there were others, mosasaurs, serpentine lords of the Cretaceous waters, gliding through the waves, with jaws hinged wide enough to swallow smaller reptiles whole. And alongside them, plesiosaurs, with necks like serpents, and flippers like wings, their silhouettes strange and graceful as they hunted in packs beneath the waves. Each age had its ruler, each sea its apex, and together they formed an unbroken lineage of power, a reminder that the oceans are older, wilder, and more enduring than anything humanity can imagine. As you breathe in, feel yourself sinking slowly into this ocean of memory, a sea without time, where predators swim not as monsters but as masterpieces designed perfectly for their world. And as you breathe out, let the thought of their strength wash over you, not with fear but with wonder. For the apex of the ancient seas were not villains but guardians of balance, necessary, eternal, and now only whispers in stone and fossil. Their reigns ended, their shadows faded, but their story lingers, waiting for us to listen, waiting for us to remember, waiting for us to dream again of the deep. Unearthing giants. Why we mostly find teeth. Why we mostly find teeth. The story of ancient predators begins not with the roar of their hunt, but with the silence of stone, with fragments left behind by time itself. When we imagine the Megalodon, the greatest shark to ever live, we picture vast jaws and colossal frames, entire skeletons resting beneath the sand, waiting to be revealed like treasures of history. But the truth is quieter, humbler. We do not find full skeletons of these giants, not often, not whole, but instead we find teeth, long, triangular, serrated teeth, shining with enamel even after millions of years, sharp as if time itself preserved their edges. Why is this so? The answer lies in the nature of the creatures themselves and in the patient hands of geology. Sharks, unlike land animals, do not have bones made of hard, enduring material. Their skeletons are crafted from cartilage, softer, lighter, flexible, perfect for speed and power in water, but fragile when left to the slow crush of centuries. Cartilage does not fossilize easily. It dissolves, breaks down, vanishes into the currents of time. But teeth, those hardened tools of survival, those weapons of the hunt, are built of enamel, one of the toughest substances in the natural world. They endure what bone cannot. They remain when the rest of the body is gone. And so, when we dig into ancient sediments, when we brush away layers of sand and clay, it is the teeth that emerge like shining beacons from the deep past. Rows upon rows, hundreds of them, for a single megalodon carried more than 200 teeth in its mouth, constantly shedding, constantly replacing, dropping them into the seafloor as casually as a tree drops leaves into soil. Each tooth, a message, each tooth, a fragment of a story, a fossil that tells us of size, of shape, of the scale of the hunter that once carried it. Without teeth, the megalodon would be myth, a shadow without form. With teeth, it becomes real again, tangible, undeniable. And so, the greatest predator in history survives not through its full skeleton, but through these fragments of enamel scattered across the globe, found in rivers, in cliffsides, on beaches where waves reveal the past with every tide. As you breathe in, imagine holding such a tooth in your hand, heavy, cool, sharp at the edges, a piece of time itself. As you breathe out, imagine the creature it belonged to, vast, powerful, alive in the endless ocean of memory. Teeth are all we have, but in their silence, they are enough. They whisper the story of giants. They keep the secret of the sea. Fossil clues, vertebrae, and rare skeletal discoveries. When we think of fossils, we often imagine entire skeletons laid out in the earth, bones preserved like a puzzle waiting to be assembled. But in the case of the ancient giants of the ocean, such complete visions are rare. Sharks, and Megalodon in particular, leave us mostly with teeth, those enduring shards of enamel. Yet sometimes, hidden in layers of sediment, in cliffs carved by rivers, or on the floor of quarries, we uncover something rarer, vertebrae, rings of cartilage turned to stone, delicate circles hardened by minerals, silent echoes of the spinal columns that once carried muscle and power through the sea. These vertebrae are not as common as teeth, for cartilage was never designed to outlast time. Yet in the right conditions, in waters low in oxygen, in sediments rich in minerals, in places where decay could not run its usual course, they become fossilized. Each one a window into size, into age, into growth. When paleontologists find vertebrae, they see not just bone, but story. They measure the growth rings, like the rings of a tree, counting the years a shark may have lived, tracing its lifespan across millions of summers and winters that no human eye ever saw. Rare skeletal finds help us imagine more than just teeth. They reveal curvature, the arc of a spine, the span of a tail, the rhythm of a body built for endless swimming. In some discoveries, clusters of vertebrae appear together, hinting at the outlines of giants long gone. In others, fragments of jaws or cartilage hardened by the strange mercy of the fossil record surface to remind us that more than enamel can endure. These finds are precious, scarce, scattered across the globe like whispers. A quarry in Belgium, a cliff in Chile, a riverbed in North America, each yielding not a whole skeleton, but a glimpse, a clue, a piece of a puzzle that can never be fully solved. And yet, these fragments are enough. They let us picture the megalodon not as a myth, but as a living being, with a spine curving through water, with muscles surging in rhythm, with a tail propelling it through ancient seas with unimaginable force. As you breathe in, imagine tracing your hand across the surface of a fossil vertebra, cool stone that was once living cartilage. As you breathe out, imagine the ocean it belonged to, wide and endless, carrying giants whose remains now rest quietly in the earth. Teeth may tell us of power, but vertebrae tell us of life, of growth, of motion. Rare discoveries that bridge the gap between imagination and memory, between what is lost and what we can still hold in our hands. Reconstructing the monster. Science meets imagination. What we know of the Megalodon is built from fragments, from scattered teeth, from rare vertebrae, from hints in stone that whisper of a creature long gone. Yet to bring this predator back into the mind's eye, to breathe form into shadow, science must lean on imagination. Teeth tell us of size, of power, of a jaw that could open wide enough to swallow a human whole with room to spare. Vertebrae tell us of growth, of strength, of a spine that curved with speed through dark oceans. But what of the rest? What of the muscles, the skin, the eyes that once scanned the waters for prey? Here, scientists turn to living sharks, comparing shapes and habits, drawing lines between the Megalodon and the great white, the tiger shark, the mako. From these modern cousins, a portrait begins to form. A body stretching more than 15 meters, perhaps 20, sleek and torpedo-shaped, with a tail powerful enough to push it across seas in steady silence. Jaws layered with hundreds of teeth, replaced again and again throughout its life, forming a conveyor belt of weapons for survival. Eyes set forward, not just to see, but to judge distance, to strike with accuracy. Skin covered in dermal denticles, tiny scales that cut, drag, and let the giant glide like a ghost beneath the waves. Each fossil adds a piece, each measurement a clue, yet the whole is never certain. Some reconstructions show a heavy, thick-bodied shark, sluggish but unstoppable, a slow-moving juggernaut of the seas. Others suggest a faster predator, leaner, built to chase whales across entire oceans. In this space between fact and possibility, imagination works quietly beside evidence. Artists sketch the outlines, modelers build bones from data, animators breathe movement into extinct muscles, and little by little, the monster emerges again, not as it truly was, for that we may never know, but as it might have been. This balance of science and imagination is a dance, a careful blending of restraint and wonder. Too much guesswork, and the picture becomes fantasy. Too little, and the creature remains faceless, a statistic instead of a presence. And so we hover between certainty and myth, piecing together not only a predator, but an idea, an image, powerful enough to linger. In the human mind, as you breathe in, imagine standing before a reconstructed megalodon jaw in a museum, teeth towering above your head like a doorway into another age. As you breathe out, imagine that jaw filled with flesh, swimming alive, eyes glinting, body moving through the endless sea. The truth may be gone, but through the union of science and imagination, the monster swims again in thought, reminding us that even in fragments, the past still breathes, measuring the unmeasurable, estimating Megalodon's size to grasp the Megalodon is to wrestle with the impossible, to try to comprehend a creature whose sheer scale defies the ordinary boundaries of imagination. No complete skeleton remains, No tape measure can stretch along its spine. No human eye has ever seen it whole. And yet, from fragments the teeth, the rare vertebrae, the subtle curves preserved in fossilized cartilage, scientists piece together an image of magnitude. Each tooth is a clue, a ruler of sorts. For the width of a jaw can be inferred from the length and angle of a serrated enamel blade, and from the jaw, the size of the head, the span of the body, the mass of a predator that could weigh tens of tons. Vertebrae offer further guidance, each ring marking growth, hinting at age, hinting at the length the body must have been to carry its own weight through water with grace and force. Estimates vary, and the numbers themselves feel almost abstract. 50, 60, 70 feet from snout to tail, bodies larger than small whales, engines of muscle and cartilage that could move with quiet inevitability through entire oceans. Yet even these numbers are not precise, for the Megalodon is measured by proxy. Imagined from fragments, understood through comparison to modern sharks, scaled with careful reasoning. Some reconstructions stretch it to 60 feet, others suggest a more conservative 50. Yet every estimate evokes the same awe, the same shiver of wonder, the same sense that in those oceans long ago, this creature was absolute. And to imagine it in motion is to feel the weight of water itself, the sweep of its tail, the pressure of the currents it created as it glided through the deep. It is to picture a predator that could consume a whale in a single bite, whose body alone could alter the path of its prey, whose shadow could darken the sunlit surface as it rose from the depths. As you breathe in, let your mind stretch with this scale. As you breathe out, let yourself feel the calm of the ocean, knowing this giant no longer hunts, no longer moves, its vastness preserved only in fossil and imagination. Measuring the unmeasurable is not just science, it is meditation. It is awe. It is the human mind reaching toward something greater, something that reminds us of our smallness and our curiosity, our desire to know, to reconstruct, to witness again what time has hidden. And in this act of estimation, we honor the Megalodon, not with fear, but with reverence, letting its memory ripple through our thoughts like currents through an endless, ancient sea. Bite force calculations, strongest jaws in history. The Megalodon's jaw was not merely large, it was a weapon of unimaginable power, a mechanism evolved over millions of years to dominate the seas. Scientists estimate that its bite force could reach over 18 tons, strong enough to crush whale bones, to split skulls, to leave marks that endure millions of years later in fossilized prey. Imagine the mechanics, rows of teeth, serrated and sharp, aligned perfectly to tear flesh with precision. Muscles in the skull and jaw, massive and efficient, built to generate pressure far beyond any living creature today. Cartilage and connective tissue flexing and snapping in rhythm with the predator's intent. Bite force is measured not in the abstract but through models of jaw structure, through comparisons with living sharks, through computer simulations that stretch our understanding of biology and physics. And yet, even in numbers, the true scale remains almost impossible to grasp. For 18 tons is not a number we can hold in our mind's eye, a pressure that would flatten a car, a power that reminds us how small and delicate life truly is. Beneath the waves, the Megalodon did not bite indiscriminately. Its hunting was precise, calculated, a balance of force and efficiency, striking at prey in ways that maximized energy and minimized risk. Its teeth, replaced throughout life in endless cycles, ensured that no strike was ever dulled by age. And when a whale was caught, the force of the bite was so extreme that bones could splinter, yet some pieces sank to the sea floor, where they, too, became fossilized, remnants that speak to us millions of years later. As you breathe in, imagine this power, vast and silent, rippling through the ocean like a pulse. As you breathe out, let yourself relax, knowing that this predator has vanished, leaving only memory and fossils, leaving only echoes of force, measured in stone and imagination. Calculating bite force is more than a scientific exercise. It is a meditation on scale, on strength, on the perfection of evolution. Each measurement teaches us not just about teeth and jaws, but about the world in which such a creature could exist, a world where predators ruled by sheer power and precision. And though the numbers are astounding, the truth is even greater. The Megalodon's jaws are a symbol, a reminder that life in the deep ocean has always been more vast, more intricate, and more astonishing than we can fully know. Comparing titans, Megalodon versus blue whale versus great white, in the vastness of the ocean. Size is a measure not only of power, but of presence. And to understand the Megalodon, we must place it alongside other giants of the sea. The blue whale, the largest animal alive today, stretches up to 100 feet long, a gentle leviathan whose heart alone can weigh as much as a car, whose movements are slow and rhythmic, gliding through the currents in a dance of immense grace. The great white, the apex predator of modern oceans, sharp, fast, and agile, measuring up to 20 feet, its teeth smaller, but perfectly designed to hunt efficiently, to strike with precision, to dominate the waters it patrols. And then there is the Megalodon, a creature lost to time, yet preserved in imagination, estimated to reach 50 to 60 feet, perhaps more, with teeth larger than a human hand, with jaws capable of exerting 18 tons of pressure, a predator, built not for gentleness, but for absolute mastery. To compare these titans is to step into a world of contrasts. The blue whale is a moving mountain of calm, feeding mostly on tiny creatures, yet influencing the ocean with its immense bulk. The great white is a striking arrow of energy, a hunter of strategy and patience, its power amplified by speed and cunning. The Megalodon combined aspects of both, massive and powerful, like the whale, yet a hunter with teeth and jaws designed to dominate, to strike and consume, to rule the seas without contest. Imagining them side by side, even in thought, evokes awe. One silent shadow of flesh and cartilage, another a graceful giant, the third a living missile of teeth and muscle. As you breathe in, picture their scale, the gentle rise and fall of a blue whale's back breaking the surface, the sudden flash of a great white fin cutting through waves, the colossal shadow of a Megalodon beneath, unseen, inexorable, a reminder of oceans beyond human comprehension. As you breathe out, let yourself float in calm. These titans, separated by time and space, meet only in imagination. They teach us not just about size or power, but about balance in the oceans, about the ways life evolves to fill every niche, about the awe that comes from standing even in thought. And though only one swims in our seas today, and the others survive in fossils and dreams. The comparison reminds us that the ocean has always been home to wonders, some gentle, some lethal, all magnificent, all shaping the world beneath the waves in ways we can scarcely imagine. Apex predator defined. What makes the top of the food chain to be an apex predator is to occupy a position unmatched, a place at the very top of an ecosystem where few, if any, creatures can challenge your authority. In the ocean, this title is not earned by size alone, nor by speed alone, and to influence the balance of life around you. The Megalodon was such a predator, a creature whose enormous size, immense power, and unparalleled bite force placed it above nearly every other marine animal of its time. It hunted whales, giant fish, and other sharks with efficiency and precision, and its presence alone dictated the behavior of entire ecosystems. Yet being an apex predator is more than just hunting. It is a role defined by influence, by impact, by the subtle and the obvious ways in which one life can shape thousands of others. The great white, the tiger shark, the orca today occupy similar positions, each mastering their environment in unique ways, each maintaining balance through predation, strategy, and survival. Apex predators control populations, maintain the health of prey species, and keep ecosystems from tipping into chaos. And in this way, the Megalodon was not simply a hunter, but a keystone of its ancient seas, a force that preserved balance through fear, strength, and presence. As you breathe in, imagine the immense authority of such a being moving silently beneath the waves. As you breathe out, feel the calm of the ocean, knowing that though the Megalodon no longer swims, its legacy of dominance and ecological influence continues to teach us about the importance of apex predators. To define the top of the food chain is to understand not just strength, but responsibility in nature, the way that one life can shape the lives of many, the way that power must be balanced with impact, and the way that even in absence, the memory of a predator continues to echo through time. And so the Megalodon remains apex, not only in size and force, but in imagination, in influence, in the enduring mark it left upon oceans that have carried the story of its reign across millions of years. The Miocene world, warm oceans, shallow seas. To understand the Megalodon, we must first step back into the Miocene epoch, a world millions of years before humans walked the earth, when oceans were warmer, shallower in many places, and teeming with life. Imagine vast seas stretching across continents that were still shifting, waters rich with plankton, krill, and schools of fish that glimmered like silver under sunlight. Coastal regions were lined with shallow bays, estuaries, and reefs, places where prey could gather in abundance, unknowingly entering the hunting grounds of giants. The currents flowed differently then, warmer and slower in some regions, faster in others, creating pockets of nutrients and pockets of calm, shaping the lives of every creature that swam within them. In these waters, whales were smaller, yet numerous, their migrations marking the rhythm of the ocean. Sharks, both small and large, filled every niche, competing, hunting, thriving in a delicate balance. And above all, the Megalodon swam, moving through this warm, shallow sea with ease. A perfect predator in a perfect world for its size and strength. The environment was crucial. for it provided the energy and resources necessary for a creature of such immense scale to survive. Warm oceans allowed faster metabolism. Abundant prey ensured growth to colossal size, and shallow seas offered hunting grounds where ambush was possible, where stealth and speed met opportunity. As you breathe in, imagine the sunlight filtering through these ancient waters, illuminating the motion of fish and plankton, the silhouettes of whales moving gracefully, the faint shadow of a predator beneath, its enormous form gliding silently. As you breathe out, feel the calm of the seas, knowing that these conditions created a world where the Megalodon could thrive, where evolution shaped one of the most powerful predators in history. The Miocene world was not static. Seas shifted, climates changed slowly, continents drifted. Yet, throughout these changes, the Megalodon remained a constant, a ruler of the warm, shallow oceans, a force shaping the life around it simply by existing. And in this world, we see not only the predator, but the interconnectedness of life, the ebb and flow of energy through ecosystems, the balance maintained by apex creatures, and the delicate harmony of an ocean millions of years old. The Miocene seas were alive, vast, and mysterious, and in their warm embrace the Megalodon swam a silent, unseen giant in a world both familiar and alien, a reminder that the oceans have always held wonders beyond human comprehension, and that even in sleep we can drift alongside them, feeling their motion, their warmth, their infinite depth. Pliocene changes, expanding coastlines, and new Prias, the Miocene gave way to the Pliocene. The oceans began to shift, coastlines expanded, and new currents reshaped the seas, carrying nutrients and prey to regions they had never reached before. The world was changing, subtly at first, then more dramatically, creating new opportunities for some species and new challenges for others. Shallow seas stretched farther along continents, forming vast bays and estuaries where schools of fish and pods of whales congregated, their patterns dictated by tides and migrations. These changes brought an abundance of new prey to the Megalodon, allowing it to continue thriving even as the world around it transformed. Whales diversified, some smaller, some larger, each offering a potential meal, each shaping the hunting strategies of this apex predator. Other sharks and marine mammals evolved as well, filling niches that had opened with changing climates, creating both competition and opportunity in the ocean. Currents shifted, carrying cold and warm waters to different regions, influencing the movement of prey and predator alike, reminding us that the ocean is a living, breathing system where life adapts or falls behind. The Megalodon moved through this changing seascape with instinctive mastery, adjusting its hunting grounds, timing its attacks, following migrations across thousands of miles of water. And yet, even in the midst of abundance, the Pliocene hinted at the fragility of life, the inevitability of change, the subtle pressures that would eventually alter the oceans forever. As you breathe in, imagine these expanding coastlines, the sunlight dancing across shallow bays, the motion of fish shimmering like liquid silver. As you breathe out, picture the shadow of the Megalodon gliding beneath, silent, vast, and eternal in this moment, a reminder of power balanced by environment, of a predator perfectly suited to a world in flux. New prey meant new strategies, new challenges, and yet the Megalodon thrived, a symbol of adaptation and dominance, moving through waters rich with life, through currents that carried both opportunity and risk. The Pliocene was a time of transition, of change, of shifting seas and emerging ecosystems, and in this ocean the Megalodon swam, a living testament to the power of evolution, the beauty of adaptation, and the enduring mystery of the deep. Even as the world began to change around it, the predator remained supreme, moving silently through warm, shallow waters, following the rhythms of life, always hunting, always present, a reminder that the oceans are ancient, alive, and filled with stories waiting to be remembered. The perfect predator, speed, size, and stealth. To understand the Megalodon is to understand the perfect balance of traits that made it the apex of the ancient seas. Size alone would not have sufficed for a giant that could not move with precision, that could not strike with efficiency, would have been vulnerable. But the Megalodon combined immense size with surprising speed, gliding through water like a shadow, its tail propelling it forward with silent power, currents flowing past its massive body as though water itself recognized its authority. Stealth was as important as strength, for prey could flee if warned too soon. The Megalodon relied on instinct, on subtle movements, on the ability to rise from depth unseen, to approach quietly in the dim blue of the ocean, waiting for the precise moment to strike. And when it did, speed and size worked together, jaws opening with explosive force, teeth aligned perfectly to grip, crush, and consume. Imagine a whale, unaware, gliding through a shallow bay, currents pushing it gently, unaware that beneath it moves a shadow larger than any threat it has ever encountered. And then, in a fraction of a moment, the predator strikes. Jaws clamping with unimaginable pressure, muscles and cartilage combining to create a force far beyond human comprehension. Every hunt was a balance of patience and precision, of stealth and power, of instinct and calculation honed over millions of years. As you breathe in, imagine the predator gliding silently, sensing the movement of its prey, adjusting its position with imperceptible grace. As you breathe out, feel the calm of the surrounding water, the soft rocking of currents, the gentle pulse of the ocean as it carries both hunter and hunted. Speed alone could not define the Megalodon, nor size alone, nor stealth alone. It was the combination of these traits that created the perfect predator, a being capable of surviving in a world full of giants, a being whose presence shaped ecosystems, dictated the behavior of whales, sharks, and marine mammals, and maintained balance in the ocean through sheer mastery. And though the predator no longer swims these seas, we can imagine it now, moving through warm, shallow waters with effortless grace, following patterns of prey, sensing vibrations in the water, choosing the moment to strike, a living embodiment of evolution's design for efficiency and dominance. Speed, size, and stealth together created not merely a hunter, but a ruler of the ocean, a force that inspired fear, demanded respect, and remains, even in imagination, the ultimate apex predator. And as you drift deeper into this thought, your own body relaxed, your mind calm, you can float alongside the Megalodon in spirit, observing the harmony of traits that made it perfect, feeling the rhythm of the hunt, the silent power of water, and the enduring wonder of a predator built by time, perfected by evolution, and remembered forever in shadow and fossil. and fossil. Serrated blades. The weaponry of Megalodon's teeth. The teeth of the Megalodon were more than tools. They were instruments of survival, perfectly evolved to dominate the oceans of their time. Each tooth was a serrated blade, a piece of armor, and weapon combined, designed to grip, slice, and hold prey with unerring precision. Imagine a tooth as long as a human hand, curved, sharp, serrations like tiny saws etched into enamel, capable of tearing through the thick blubber and bones of whales. Teeth were replaced constantly throughout the Megalodon's life, hundreds, perhaps thousands, over decades, ensuring that every bite was as deadly as the first. Unlike the soft cartilage of its skeleton, these teeth were durable, enduring the passage of millions of years, fossilized reminders of a predator that no longer swims. Each tooth tells a story of feeding, of hunting, of a creature whose very existence reshaped marine ecosystems. As scientists study these fossils, they measure serrations, angles, curvature, deducing not only size, but how the predator attacked, how it consumed its prey, and even how it lived. Imagine the precision, a slight tilt of the jaw, a perfect alignment of teeth, pressure applied with unerring accuracy, enough to pierce bone and hold fast. And yet, these teeth were not weapons of recklessness. They were tools of efficiency, allowing the Megalodon to consume enormous prey without waste, to survive in a world where failure meant death. As you breathe in, picture the glint of enamel. Under sunlight, the smooth curve and jagged edge, the perfection of design honed by evolution. As you breathe out, let yourself drift in calm, imagining the predator gliding silently beneath, its teeth ready, its senses alert, the water flowing past in endless rhythm. Serrated blades were more than weapons, they were extensions of the predator, as integral to life as muscles, fins, or tail. They allowed the Megalodon to hunt with dominance, to influence entire food chains, to command fear and respect in every creature that shared its oceans. Each fossilized tooth, discovered millions of years later, is a window into that life, a tangible piece of power, a reminder of a predator whose teeth could slice through giants. And as you imagine them now, teeth embedded in jaws of immense proportion, remember that each serration, each edge, was crafted by nature to perfection, a tool that shaped life, dictated survival, and remains, even in stone, a testament to the power of the ultimate apex predator. And as you drift deeper into sleep, you can feel the quiet majesty of these serrated blades, the calm of the ocean, the memory of a predator whose teeth still shine in fossils, still echo in imagination, and still remind us of the balance, the beauty, and the terror of life in the deep, ancient seas. Feeding habits, hunting early whales and large fish. The Megalodon was a hunter shaped by the rhythms of the sea, a predator whose very life depended on movement, precision, and understanding the patterns of its prey. Its diet was vast, but early whales and large fish formed the backbone of its sustenance, creatures that moved in pods and schools, unaware of the silent shadow gliding beneath. Whales, though smaller than modern giants, provided enormous amounts of energy, a single meal enough to sustain a predator for days, perhaps weeks, in a world where every hunt carried risk and effort. Large fish, swift and agile, tested the Megalodon's speed and stealth. forcing it to perfect its strikes, to adjust its approach, to synchronize the power of tail, jaws, and teeth with the rhythm of water and prey. Hunting was an art as much as a necessity. The predator observed currents, migration patterns, and feeding grounds, approaching with patience, circling quietly, striking only when the moment was perfect. Imagine the ocean teeming with life, schools of fish flashing silver. In sunlight, whales moving in graceful arcs, and beneath, the enormous form of the megalodon, silent, watching, calculating, waiting. And then, a movement, a breach, a chance. The predator strikes with incredible force. Teeth aligned, jaws crushing, muscles contracting, tail propelling with precision. Bones splinter, blubber tears, and the predator consumes its prize with efficiency honed by millions of years of evolution. Yet feeding was not mindless. It was controlled, balanced, a demonstration of power applied with restraint, ensuring survival without waste. As you breathe in, imagine the motion of the predator, gliding effortlessly, sensing every vibration, following the subtle cues in water that signal life. As you breathe out, let the calm of the ocean envelop you, the ebb and flow carrying both predator and prey in timeless rhythm, reminding you that survival is as much about patience as power. Hunting early whales and large fish shaped not only the megalodon, but entire ecosystems, influencing migration, behavior, and even evolution of prey species. Each successful hunt reinforced the predator's dominance, each failure a lesson in adaptation, each day a continuation of life in the vast, warm, shallow seas of the Miocene and Pliocene. And though the megalodon no longer swims, we can imagine it now, moving with purpose, hunting with precision, sustaining itself, maintaining balance in a world of abundance and danger. Its feeding habits remind us that life in the ocean is interconnected, that predator and prey exist in harmony and tension, that survival is a dance of instinct, strategy, and power. And as you drift deeper into thought and sleep, you can float beside it, witnessing the silent mastery of an apex predator, feeling the calm, the vastness, and the eternal rhythm of the seas in which it once reigned supreme. Fossilized evidence, whale bones with gigantic bite marks, the silent testimony of the megalodon survives, not only in teeth and vertebrae, but also in the bones of its prey. Fossilized reminders of moments frozen in time, moments when predator met whale in the depths of ancient seas. Imagine a whale drifting through warm waters millions of years ago, unaware of the enormous shadow gliding beneath, its body strong, yet no match for the precision, speed, and strength of the ultimate hunter. And then, the striker jaw opening with explosive power, teeth clamping down with incredible force, serrated edges slicing through blubber and bones, leaving marks that would endure long after flesh decayed, long after the predator moved on. These bite marks, etched into fossilized whale bones, are more than mere impressions. They are records of behavior, of hunting strategy, of survival on a scale that humbles the human imagination. Scientists study the size, depth, and pattern of these marks, reconstructing the size of the predator, the angle of the strike, even the sequence of bites in a single feeding event. Each bone is a puzzle piece, revealing the megalodon's method, its dominance, its capacity to consume enormous prey with efficiency honed by millions of years of evolution. Some fossils show repeated attacks, scars healed before death, suggesting encounters with the predator were as common as they were terrifying, shaping the behavior of whales, influencing migration, and creating a ripple effect through ecosystems. As you breathe in, picture the immense jaws closing around the rib of a whale, the subtle give of blubber, the cracking of bone under unstoppable pressure. As you breathe out, imagine the bone settling into sediment, preserved through time, waiting millions of years to speak once more to us through fossil record. These bite marks are proof of power, yes, but also of precision, of survival, of the intricate dance between hunter and prey that defines the apex of the food chain. They remind us that the ocean is not only home to life, but also to struggle, strategy, and the incredible adaptations that evolution produces over millennia. Each fossilized bone with teeth marks is a window into a day in the life of the predator, a moment of reality in a world long vanished, a silent testament to the size, speed, and strength of a creature that ruled the seas without contest. And though the Megalodon has vanished, these bones speak, carrying the echoes of violence, survival, and dominance, whispering to us across millions of years about the reality of life in the oceans, about the scale of the predator, and about the deep, enduring power of nature's designs. As you drift into thought and sleep, you can imagine floating alongside these moments, seeing the predator strike, feeling the rhythm of ancient seas, sensing the tension, the calm, and the eternal flow of life and death that shaped the deep, mysterious waters of the past. Trophic levels explained. Nature's hierarchy of energy life in the ocean is a network of relationships, a delicate balance of energy passed from one creature to another. And understanding the Megalodon requires understanding this hierarchy, these trophic levels that structure existence beneath the waves. At the base are the tiniest of organisms, plankton drifting with currents, microscopic yet abundant, capturing sunlight and nutrients, converting them into energy that will ripple upward through the ocean's food web. Small fish feed on plankton. Larger fish feed on small fish, and in turn, larger predators rise, each level consuming the one below, transferring energy, sustaining life, maintaining balance. The Megalodon occupied the pinnacle of this pyramid, an apex predator whose influence extended far beyond the meals it consumed. By hunting whales, large fish, and other sharks, it controlled populations, prevented overgrazing of certain species, and maintained the rhythm of life across entire ecosystems. Energy flowed through its body as it moved, hunted, and fed, a culmination of countless meals from creatures that had themselves consumed the abundance of the ocean. Without apex predators, like the Megalodon, balance could falter. Prey might overpopulate, ecosystems could shift, and the entire network of life might experience cascading effects. Understanding trophic levels is to see life as a system, interconnected, where every bite has consequences, where every predator shapes the future of the ocean. As you breathe in, picture the sunlight entering the water, energizing plankton, feeding small fish, which feed larger fish, which feed sharks, and finally, reaching the Megalodon, the ultimate consumer of energy in this ancient sea. As you breathe out, feel the calm, the rhythm of the ocean, the flow of energy moving unseen, connecting every creature, large and small, in a web of life that is both fragile and enduring. The hierarchy of energy is not rigid. It is dynamic, shifting with seasons, migrations, and environmental changes. Yet the apex predator remains a constant, a force of stability, guiding the ebb and flow of life below. Even millions of years after its extinction, the megalodon reminds us of the power and responsibility carried by apex predators, the way that one life can influence many, the way that energy flows through ecosystems in endless cycles of survival, consumption, and renewal. Each trophic level carries a story, a lesson, a reflection of balance and adaptation. And at the top, the megalodon stood as both master and participant, shaping the seas, sustaining the web, and leaving an enduring imprint on the oceans of the past. As you drift into deeper thought, imagine this hierarchy flowing around you, energy moving silently, life persisting, balance maintained, and the memory of the ultimate predator guiding the unseen rhythm of ancient waters. Part 2: A world of giants and shifting tides, and a time when the oceans were ruled by giants, when every wave and current carried life of immense scale, when the water itself seemed alive with movement and power. The megalodon swam alongside, whales smaller than today's giants, but formidable in their own right, alongside enormous sharks, massive fish, and marine mammals that thrived in warm, shallow seas. Each species was part of a complex, interwoven ecosystem, where size and strength dictated behavior, survival, and the dance of predator and prey. But the world was not static. Tides shifted, coastlines expanded, and the arrangement of continents subtly changed the rhythm of the seas. Currents carried warmth and nutrients to new regions, opening feeding grounds, creating migration paths, altering habitats in ways both subtle and profound. The megalodon moved through this ever-changing landscape with instinctive mastery, following prey, adapting to new hunting grounds, maintaining dominance over waters that were vast, dynamic, and alive. Giants of the ocean influenced each other in ways that might seem invisible, yet were essential to survival, shaping behavior, migration, and reproductive cycles. And yet, the shifting tides carried challenges as well, altering temperatures, food availability, and the very structure of the seas, forcing adaptation or risking decline. As you breathe in, picture these ancient oceans stretching beyond the horizon, sunlight filtering through warm waters, the motion of whales and fish beneath the surface, and the quiet presence of the megalodon gliding through, sensing every movement, every current. As you breathe out, feel the rhythm of tides and seasons, the ebb and flow of life, the quiet balance maintained through power, adaptation, and instinct. Life in these seas was a dialogue between strength and environment, a delicate interplay between predator and prey, between abundance and scarcity, between stability and change. The megalodon's dominance was shaped by this dynamic world, its survival intertwined with the giants and currents around it, its legacy preserved in teeth, vertebrae, and fossilized memories of predation, even as millions of years passed. The story of these giants, their interactions, and the shifting tides remains embedded in the fossil record, reminding us of a world vast, complex, and full of wonder. And as you drift deeper into thought and sleep, imagine floating through these ancient waters, observing the silent power of the megalodon, the grace of whales, the rhythm of currents, and the eternal movement of life shaped by giants and tides. a meditation on scale, balance, and the ever-changing ocean that carried them all. Beyond teeth, the rare vertebral column discoveries, while teeth dominate the fossil record, offering dramatic proof of the megalodon's existence. Vertebrae provide a quieter, rarer glimpse into the creature's true scale, its growth, and the mechanics of its immense body. Each vertebra, circular and solid, carries the story of years of life. Rings marking growth, like the rings of ancient trees, recording seasons, age, and development of a predator unparalleled in the seas. These fossils are uncommon because cartilage, the material forming much of a shark's skeleton, rarely fossilizes, leaving only the hardest structures to survive the passage of millions of years. Yet even these fragments speak volumes, revealing proportions, flexibility, and the incredible size the megalodon must have reached, the distance from head to tail, the curvature that allowed such power in swimming, the strength to propel a massive body silently and efficiently through water. By measuring vertebrae, scientists can estimate length, reconstruct muscle attachments, and imagine the motion of the creature as it glided, hunted, and dominated its world. Each discovery is a reminder that the megalodon was not merely teeth and jaws, but an integrated organism, a predator built from head to tail for survival, hunting, and dominance. Vertebrae also hint at age and maturity, showing how long the megalodon could live, how many seasons it witnessed, how it adapted to changes in prey and ocean conditions across its lifespan. As you breathe in, picture these bones lying quietly in sediment preserved for eons, each one a key to unlocking the mysteries of a creature that ruled the seas. As you breathe out, imagine reconstructing the enormous body in your mind. Vertebrae aligned, muscles imagined, tail poised for power, swimming through warm, shallow waters with effortless mastery. Rare vertebral discoveries complement the teeth, providing context, dimension, and life to the predator known mostly through singular, dramatic evidence. They remind us that the megalodon was a living, moving force, a being shaped by evolution to perfection, whose body was designed for speed, stealth, and power in equal measure. And though these bones are silent now, they speak through careful study, through reconstruction, through imagination, allowing us to glimpse the predator in motion, the predator in life, not just in fossil fragments. Each vertebra is a testament to the scale of the megalodon, the precision of nature's design, and the enduring fascination of a creature that, though extinct, continues to dominate our thoughts, our research, and our dreams of ancient oceans. And as you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the vertebrae aligned, the body complete, gliding beneath sunlit waters, the rhythm of the tail, the silent authority of an apex predator, the majesty of life scaled to perfection, and the quiet wonder of discovery that connects us across millions of years to the ultimate giant of the seas. Redrawing the body from stocky beast to streamlined, hunterly depictions of the megalodon imagined a stocky, almost lumbering creature, massive and imposing, but lacking the subtlety needed to understand its role as the ultimate predator. Over time, as fossils, vertebrae, and teeth were studied in detail, a new vision emerged, a sleek, streamlined hunter built for speed, efficiency, and lethal precision. The megalodon's body, once thought heavy and awkward, is now understood to have been shaped like a perfect machine, its proportions optimized to move silently through water, to ambush prey, and to exert extraordinary power when striking. Its massive tail, wide and muscular, provided thrust, while its fins were positioned for balance and maneuverability, allowing sudden bursts of speed when the moment to attack arrived. Vertebrae, rare and precious, reveal flexibility, showing that the predator could bend, twist, and turn with astonishing agility, countering assumptions that size meant clumsiness. Teeth, serrated and perfectly aligned, fit seamlessly into jaws capable of opening wide, closing fast, and applying crushing force precisely where needed. Each fossil, each bone, each fragment contributed to a growing understanding of the predator as a cohesive, elegant organism, not just a collection of monstrous parts. Scientists use computer models, comparisons with modern sharks, and biomechanical analysis to recreate movement, posture, and even likely hunting strategies, imagining the predator gliding through ancient oceans, sensing vibrations, tracking prey, and striking with unparalleled efficiency. As you breathe in, picture this sleek form cutting through sun-dappled waters, fins balancing, tail propelling, jaw ready, muscles taut with quiet power. As you breathe out, feel the harmony of body and environment, the predator perfectly adapted to its domain, a creature of both beauty and terror, a living machine sculpted by millions of years of evolution. The shift from stocky beast to streamlined hunter reflects not just scientific progress, but a deeper understanding of life in motion, of how predators evolve to meet the challenges of their environment, and how every detail, from vertebrae to tail fin, contributes to survival. This reconstruction brings the Megalodon to life in imagination, allowing us to perceive it as it may have truly existed, efficient, agile, immense, and deadly, a predator whose design reflects both power and elegance. And as you drift deeper into thought and sleep, imagine gliding beside it, observing its motion, sensing the rhythm of muscles and water, feeling the quiet perfection of evolution manifested in one of the ocean's greatest hunters, a reminder that life, even in its most fearsome form, is crafted with precision, purpose, and harmony. Daily life of a giant, hunting, rest, and migration. The life of a megalodon was a continuous flow, guided by instinct, opportunity, and the rhythms of the ocean. Each day was shaped by the pursuit of sustenance, the movement of prey, and the patterns of the seas themselves, a delicate balance between energy expenditure and survival. Hunting was central, a dance of patience and power. The predator would glide silently beneath the surface, muscles rippling with controlled force, tail propelling it forward, fins stabilizing each movement, senses attuned to vibrations, shadows, and the faintest motion. Schools of fish shimmered ahead, whales breached the waters above, and the Megalodon, massive yet elegant, followed without haste, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when it did, jaws opened wide, teeth aligned, force delivered with precision, securing a meal that would sustain it for days. Yet life was not all hunting. Moments of rest were essential, even for a creature so immense. Slow, effortless swimming through warm waters allowed muscles to relax, energy to be conserved, and senses to remain alert without exertion. The currents carried it gently, a drifting rhythm that balanced the exertion of predation with the calm of inactivity, a quiet meditation in motion. Migration was another defining aspect of daily life, a journey dictated by the movement of prey, seasonal changes, and the pursuit of optimal conditions for hunting and reproduction. These migrations could span thousands of miles, silent passages, through deep and shallow waters, guided by instinct and memory, a navigation perfected over millions of years of evolution. As you breathe in, imagine the Megalodon moving through sunlit bays, through deep blue corridors of the ocean, sensing the pull of prey and currents alike. As you breathe out, feel the gentle rocking of the waves, the rhythm of the sea supporting this giant, a balance between effort and ease, between hunter and environment. Daily life was a combination of moments of power and moments of calm, each necessary to sustain the giant body, to maintain dominance in a world of giants and shifting tides. It was a life of fluidity, of constant adaptation, of awareness and precision, where every movement, every choice, and every pause contributed to survival. And though we cannot witness it directly, fossils, teeth, vertebrae, and bite marks allow us to reconstruct these rhythms, to imagine the predator gliding silently, hunting efficiently, resting deliberately, migrating across the vast expanse of the ocean with quiet mastery. As you drift deeper into sleep, picture this ancient giant moving with effortless grace, sensing the world, responding with instinct, and living a life perfectly adapted to the demands of the ultimate apex predator. The ebb and flow of hunting, rest, and migration mirrors the pulse of the ocean itself, a meditation on balance, survival, and the timeless dance of life beneath the waves, a rhythm that continues to echo in imagination long after the Megalodon has vanished from our seas. Prey of choice, early whales, seals, and large fish. The Megalodon's menu was as vast as the oceans themselves. Yet certain creatures stood out as the primary focus of its predation, guiding hunting patterns and shaping the predator's very existence. Early whales were at the top of this list, their size providing an immense source of energy, their abundance creating predictable hunting opportunities. These whales, smaller than modern giants but still formidable, swam in pods, unaware of the shadow gliding silently beneath, sensing currents and vibrations, yet unable to detect the predator's precise approach. Seals and pinnipeds offered a different challenge, smaller but swift and agile, requiring bursts of speed, strategic maneuvering, and precise strikes. Large fish, both solitary and schooling, demanded adaptation, forcing the predator to perfect ambush, timing, and jaw alignment. Each prey type shaped a different aspect of the Megalodon's hunting strategy, combining speed, power, and stealth in unique ways. The predator's senses were attuned to the subtleties of water, detecting the faintest movements, vibrations, and disturbances, guiding it toward prey with uncanny accuracy. As you breathe in, imagine a pod of early whales gliding through sunlit waters, oblivious to the predator beneath, moving with grace and rhythm. Each tail beat a pulse of life. As you breathe out, sense the shadow beneath them, immense and silent, tail swishing with measured force, jaws poised, teeth ready, muscles coiled for a strike of incredible precision and power. Hunting seals required bursts of agility, a chase across shallow bays, a sudden ambush, teeth clamping on blubber and bone, efficiency paramount, energy conserved for survival. Large fish added another dimension, requiring adaptability, strategy, and timing, testing every skill honed by evolution over millions of years. The predator's choice of prey reflects not only caloric needs but ecological influence, controlling populations, shaping migration, and maintaining balance across ecosystems. And though we cannot witness these ancient interactions, bite marks, fossilized bones, and reconstructed feeding patterns provide glimpses into this ancient drama, revealing the predator's preference, skill, and dominance. Daily life was shaped by these choices, the predator following patterns, anticipating movements, conserving energy, and striking when opportunity arose. And as you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the predator in motion, selecting its prey, moving with quiet authority, hunting early whales, seals, and large fish with perfect mastery. A meditation on survival, adaptation, and the intricate web of life beneath the waves. Each prey encounter was a dance of strategy, instinct, and power, a story written in the currents, in teeth marks, and in the rhythms of the ancient ocean, echoing across millions of years to remind us of the majesty, precision, and dominance of the megalodon. Hunting strategy, ambush predator, or pursuit killer. The bones of ancient whales, sharks, and other marine creatures carry silent testimony of encounters with the megalodon, fossils that preserve moments of predation frozen in time, offering glimpses into the life and power of this apex predator. Each bite mark, etched into thick bone, is more than a wound. It is evidence of behavior, a record of hunting strategy, precision, and the application of immense force. Some fossils reveal a single strike, a calculated attempt to incapacitate prey, while others show repeated bites, telling a story of pursuit, struggle, and survival. The size, shape, and depth of these marks allow scientists to reconstruct the predator's jaw, its bite force, and even its hunting approach, bridging millions of years of time to bring the megalodon into understanding. Imagine a whale drifting in the warm Miocene waters, oblivious to the shadow beneath, when suddenly jaws of unimaginable power close, teeth serrating through blubber and bone, leaving marks that would endure long after the flesh disappeared. Some fossils even show healing around bite marks, evidence that prey survived initial attacks, hinting at resilience, strategy, and the ongoing dance between predator and prey. These bones reveal the scope of the megalodon's influence, showing how apex predators shape populations, migration patterns, and the evolution of other species. As you breathe in, picture the fossilized bone, smooth yet scarred, resting in sediment for millions of years, a silent messenger from an ancient ocean. As you breathe out, imagine the predator in motion, gliding through water with calculated stealth, jaws ready, muscles rippling, a being whose very existence dictated the rhythm of life around it. Each fossil tells a story not only of power, but also of precision, patience, and the ecological role of the megalodon. It was not a mindless predator. It hunted strategically, targeting prey efficiently, consuming energy with purpose, influencing ecosystems through every attack. These fossilized records provide a tangible link to the past, reminding us that the apex predator was real, immense, and dominant, and that its interactions with other marine life shaped the oceans in profound ways. As you drift deeper into thought, and sleep. Imagine floating through these ancient seas, observing the predator in action, sensing the tension between hunter and hunted, the silent authority of the megalodon, and the enduring evidence left behind in bones that carry stories across millions of years. The echoes of these attacks are still visible in fossils, teaching us about life, survival, and the intricate balance of the ocean, and allowing us to witness, in imagination, the majestic and terrifying reality of the ultimate giant of the seas. Nurseries, coastal shallows for the young even giants, must begin small. And for the megalodon, survival began in sheltered coastal shallows, where warm waters and abundant prey created ideal conditions for the young. These nursery areas were havens, protected from the full force of adult predators, rich with food sources to sustain rapid growth, and carefully chosen by instinct, a subtle guidance handed down through millions of years of evolution. Juvenile megalodons, though small in comparison to their parents, were formidable hunters in miniature, learning the rhythms of the ocean, the movements of prey, and the nuances of stealth and strike. Early fish and small marine mammals provided nutrition, teaching the young predator the balance of energy, expenditure, and survival. The shallow waters offered protection, but also challenges. Currents, temperature changes, and smaller predators tested the developing sharks, shaping agility, strength, and instinct. Imagine the sunlight glimmering across calm bays, the water warm, teeming with tiny fish, with the young megalodon learning to glide, to twist, to hunt, to sense the subtle vibrations of life around it. As you breathe in, feel the gentle motion of these nursery waters, the rhythm of tides carrying nutrients and opportunity, a quiet stage for learning, growth, and survival. As you breathe out, sense the protective calm, the gradual mastery of the young predators, their senses sharpening, muscles strengthening, instincts guiding them toward eventual dominance in the open ocean. Nurseries were not merely habitats. They were classrooms of survival, places where life skills were honed, strategies developed, and the foundations of future hunting mastery laid. Each juvenile that survived the shallows carried forward the legacy of the species, growing into the massive, efficient, apex predators that would dominate seas for millions of years. And though time has passed, fossils hint at these areas. Tooth fragments, bite marks, and sedimentary evidence revealing the quiet, vital importance of coastal nurseries in shaping one of the ocean's greatest hunters. Daily life in these nurseries was a blend of growth, play, hunting practice, and instinctive learning, a rhythm perfectly aligned with the gentle energy of shallow waters. And as you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the young megalodons gliding through sunlit shallows, sensing movement, practicing strikes, learning the pulse of the ocean, a meditation on growth, survival, and the quiet preparation that enables greatness. Coastal nurseries were where the future of the species was nurtured, where life began, where the rhythm of hunting, learning, and adaptation took root, reminding us that even giants rely on the protection, guidance, and abundance of smaller, gentler waters to thrive in the vast, mysterious ocean. Fossil hotspots, Panama, North America, and Europe. If we want to understand the life of the megalodon, we must follow its fossil trail, scattered across continents and oceans, hidden in stone and sediment. The most common fossils we find are teeth, colossal, serrated triangles, some the size of a human hand, each one a story frozen in time. These teeth are discovered in remarkable abundance in Panama, where ancient, shallow seas once provided feeding grounds and nurseries for the giants. In the cliffs and riverbeds of this region, paleontologists sift through layers of sediment, unearthing the legacy of a predator that swam here millions of years ago. North America, too, is rich with megalodon remains, particularly along the eastern seaboard of the United States. From Florida to the Carolinas, rivers, quarries, and beaches reveal tooth after tooth, washed from ancient seabeds and carried into the hands of modern collectors. Each discovery is a reminder that these waters once echoed with the movements of immense predators, patrolling coasts, hunting whales, and shaping marine ecosystems. Farther inland, fossil beds preserve vertebrae and rare skeletal fragments, giving scientists glimpses into how the megalodon's body was built. Across the Atlantic, Europe also yields its share of treasures. In countries like Belgium and Spain, fossil deposits reveal not just teeth, but broader snapshots of Miocene and Pliocene marine life, showing how Megalodon lived alongside early whales, dolphins, and other sharks. These fossil hotspots are like windows in time, each one revealing a fragment of a world where oceans were warmer, sea levels higher, and predators larger than anything alive today. Imagine standing at the edge of a quarry in Panama or walking along a riverbank in North Carolina, your eyes scanning the sand until you find it a massive triangular tooth, blackened by time, heavy in your hand, a piece of a giant that once ruled the seas. These fossils connect us to a creature that no longer swims the oceans, yet whose shadow still drifts in our imagination. Every hotspot, every site of discovery, tells not just of the megalodon itself, but of the ecosystems it shaped and the prey it pursued. As you breathe in, picture the calm persistence of rivers eroding stone, carrying fossils toward discovery. As you breathe out, imagine the patient hands of paleontologists brushing away sediment, revealing teeth that have lain hidden for millions of years. Fossil hotspots are more than scientific sites. They are resting places of memory, archives of an ancient ocean that waits beneath our feet. And as you drift deeper into calm thought, imagine these teeth as anchors of history, grounding us to the deep past, reminding us that life on Earth has always been vast, shifting, and full of mysteries still waiting to surface. Protecting the young, evolutionary advantages of nurseries in the vast and unpredictable oceans of the Miocene and Pliocene. Survival was not guaranteed, even for giants. The megalodon, despite its immense size and power, entered the world as something small, fragile, and vulnerable. Fossil evidence suggests that juvenile megalodons were not born in the open deep seas, where predators and competition were fierce, but in sheltered coastal nurseries, shallow lagoons, and estuaries where conditions offered safety and abundance. These environments, rich in smaller fish and free from many large predators, provided the perfect balance of protection and nourishment for the young. The fossil record shows concentrations of smaller megalodon teeth in certain coastal areas, a strong hint that these were designated breeding and rearing grounds. To imagine it is to see a hidden rhythm of the ocean's past, massive mothers guiding their newborns into calm waters. away from the dangers of rival sharks and the ever-present threat of starvation. In these nurseries, juveniles could grow quickly, feeding on fish and smaller marine animals, gaining strength before venturing into the open ocean. The evolutionary advantage was clear. Without nurseries, too many young would have perished, but with them, the lineage of the ultimate predator thrived for millions of years. These sheltered spaces were like classrooms of survival, places where the young learned instinctively how to hunt, how to move, how to become part of the hierarchy of the sea. It is easy to imagine the quiet waters of these ancient nurseries, sunlight filtering through the shallow depths, while small megalodons glided just beneath the surface, safe yet destined for greatness. For the adult females, returning to the nursery was an act written in evolution, a strategy to ensure the survival of the species, a cycle repeated for generation upon generation. The nurseries themselves became sacred grounds of survival, critical ecosystems where life's balance tilted in favor of the vulnerable, only to unleash in time predators of unimaginable scale. This strategy echoes across nature even today. For sharks of many species still seek shallow bays to birth their young, the past whispering through the present. And so, in the stillness of ancient coasts, the megalodon's story carried on, each nursery a cradle of giants, each wave carrying forward the future of a predator that would dominate the seas. As you breathe in, imagine the calm waters of those long-lost coasts, and as you breathe out, picture the hidden strength growing within them, strength that would one day patrol the deep ocean as the ultimate apex predator. Nurseries were the secret advantage, the unseen foundation of survival, and without them, the megalodon might never have risen to rule the ancient seas, rivals of the deep. Encountering Leviathan, the giant sperm whale in the ancient seas of the Miocene. Megalodon was not alone at the top. Another giant swam those waters, a predator no less fearsome, a whale unlike the gentle giants of today. This was Leviathan Melville, named after the biblical sea monster, and the author who gave us Moby Dick. Unlike modern sperm whales that hunt squid in the abyss, Leviathan hunted flesh and bone prey, with jaws lined with massive, conical teeth, some longer than a man's forearm. Where Megalodon had serrated blades built for slicing, Leviathan had stabbing spears, rooted in a skull as powerful as a fortress. Their bodies were immense, rivaling Megalodon in length, reaching more than 50 feet, their bulk driven by muscle and bone, propelled through the seas with terrifying momentum. Imagine the ocean when these two giants met, one a shark of unmatched bite force, the other a whale of crushing jaws. Both targeted the same prey, early baleen whales, seals, dolphins, and any large animal that strayed into their hunting grounds. Competition was inevitable. We cannot know for certain if they clashed, but the fossil record suggests a battlefield of shared territory where dominance was determined not by size alone, but by strategy, endurance, and hunger. Megalodon, with its ambush tactics, could strike from below, unseen until the last moment. Leviathan, with its air-breathing lungs, had the power of pursuit, ramming and tearing with teeth designed to grip and crush for millions of years. These titans coexisted, shaping the very balance of marine life. Each encounter must have been a silent war beneath the waves, a test of patience, stealth, and raw force. Picture it now, drifting in the dark waters of your imagination, the massive shadow of Megalodon circling below, and above it, the looming bulk of Leviathan, their presence turning the sea itself into a stage of tension. These rivalries remind us that even the greatest predators are never truly alone. There is always another, equally adapted, equally powerful, ready to challenge the crown. As you close your eyes, let the thought settle. The ocean is not only vast, it is contested, a place where survival is written in tooth and bone. Megalodon ruled with serrated jaws, Leviathan with spear-like teeth, and together they represent one of the most extraordinary rivalries nature has ever written into the deep. Killer whale ancestors, the rise of coordinated hunters in the shadow of giants like Megalodon. Another lineage was quietly shaping the future of ocean dominance. The ancestors of modern killer whales, belonging to the broader family of toothed whales known as odontocetes, were not the largest predators in the seas, but they were among the most intelligent. Over millions of years, these creatures began to develop strategies that no amount of size or brute force could match: teamwork, communication, and coordination. Fossil evidence suggests that early relatives of the orca emerged during the Miocene and Pliocene epochs, a time when ocean ecosystems were filled with opportunity and danger. These early cetaceans had sharp teeth designed for seizing flesh, streamlined bodies built for speed, and brains already trending toward complexity. But more than their anatomy, it was their behavior that would set them apart. While sharks and giant solitary hunters relied on ambush or sheer power, the ancestors of killer whales began to experiment with something radically different: social hunting. They learned to work together in small pods, much like wolf packs on land, coordinating movements to trap prey, to exhaust schools of fish, or to isolate larger marine animals. Each member of the pod had a role, and success meant survival for all. Over time, this strategy became refined, passed down not through instinct alone, but through teaching, through shared learning, through what scientists today call culture. Imagine a world where groups of smaller predators could successfully take down creatures far larger than themselves, not because of muscle, but because of intelligence and unity. These ancient hunters likely tested strategies we still see today in modern orcas, corralling fish into tight bait balls, flipping stingrays to disable them, or chasing seals onto ice floes to block every possible escape. In the fossil record, teeth and skull structures tell us they were powerful biters, but their brains, inferred from cranial cavities, tell us they were thinkers, communicators, strategists. This was the rise of a new kind of apex predator, one defined not by size alone, but by cooperation. As Megalodon began to fade from the oceans, these early coordinated hunters were already preparing to inherit the seas, not by overwhelming force, but by precision and teamwork. And in the quiet rhythms of the Miocene and Pliocene oceans, evolution was drafting the blueprint for the modern orca, a predator that rules not by fear alone, but by family, memory, and mastery of collective hunting. To close your eyes and imagine their rise is to drift into a story of intelligence awakening in the sea, where every movement, every call, and every hunt was shared, rehearsed, and perfected over countless generations. The story of the killer whale ancestors is the story of cooperation as a weapon, of survival, not in isolation, but in unity and in time. This unity would crown them the apex hunters of the modern oceans, heirs to the throne left empty by the fall of giants. Competition for food. How rivals tested Megalodon's dominance in the ancient seas. Food was the currency of survival, and even the mightiest predators could not escape the rules of nature. Megalodon, with its enormous size and appetite, required vast amounts of prey to sustain its bulk. Early baleen whales, young cetaceans, seals, and schools of large fish all became part of its diet. But Megalodon was not alone in hunting these waters. Rivals pressed in from every direction, testing its dominance in ways both subtle and violent. Leviathan melville, the giant sperm whale, with its massive conical teeth, sought the same prey, and its intelligence, social behavior, and endurance made it a formidable adversary. Smaller but swift predators, like early orcas, ancestral mako sharks, and even packs of predatory dolphins, competed for scraps, their presence forcing Megalodon to expend energy or alter its hunting grounds. Every kill, every carcass, became a point of contention. In those vast oceans, the sound of a whale's distress call might summon not just Megalodon, but a host of competitors eager to feed. Megalodon's strategy was ambush, an overwhelming force, striking hard and fast from below. Rivals, however, adapted differently. Some used teamwork, others speed, others endurance. The result was a dynamic balance where even the largest shark in history had to prove itself again and again. Dominance was not simply about size, but about efficiency. Could Megalodon capture enough prey to sustain itself before rivals closed in? Could it hold its ground at a feeding site against another apex predator? Fossil evidence of whale bones scarred with bite marks tells us that these battles were real, that more than one hunter often tore into the same prey. The competition for food was relentless, shaping the behavior, the migration, and ultimately, the fate of Megalodon itself. For while it was unmatched in sheer power, the ocean was never a kingdom ruled in isolation. It was a shifting battlefield of hunger, strategy, and survival. Climate shift begins. Cooling oceans of the late Miocene, the oceans once warm and sprawling with life during the height of the Miocene, began to change in ways subtle at first, then profound. Temperatures that had nurtured coral reefs in higher latitudes and filled shallow seas with teeming biodiversity slowly began to drop. A global cooling event driven by shifting tectonic plates, changing ocean currents, and the gradual buildup of ice in the polar regions reshaped the stage on which life had long played its roles. As continents drifted, gateways that once allowed warm waters to circulate freely began to close. The narrowing of the Central American Seaway, the rearrangement of currents in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, all combining to alter the delicate balance of heat and salt that defined marine circulation. These shifts meant that waters that were once temperate and forgiving grew colder, less stable, more stratified. Nutrient upwelling increased in some regions, bringing food to the surface in abundance, while in other places, ecosystems collapsed under the weight of rapid change. For creatures like the Megalodon, who thrived in warm, shallow seas filled with whale calves and large, slow-moving prey, these shifts spelled trouble. Their nurseries grew colder, their hunting grounds narrowed, and their prey began to adapt in ways the giant shark could not easily counter. At the same time, smaller and more adaptable predators, ancestors of modern orcas, dolphins, and other toothed whales, found ways to exploit the new environment. Unlike the giants, who needed warm seas and vast resources to sustain their immense size, these smaller predators could range farther, adapt faster, and learn new hunting strategies in unfamiliar waters. The cooling of the late Miocene was not just a backdrop, but a force, a silent, patient architect of extinction and evolution alike. It pressed down on ecosystems with quiet inevitability, rearranging the map of survival, favoring the quick and the clever over the massive and the ancient. And so, the oceans grew colder, more dynamic, less welcoming to giants, and more fertile for those who could bend, change, and endure. In this shifting climate, the balance of power in the seas began to tilt, setting the stage for the decline of the megalodon and the rise of a new apex predator, one not defined by bulk, but by brilliance and cooperation. The climate itself had chosen its champions, dropping sea levels, shrinking habitats, rising problems as the Earth tilted further into the cooling trends of the late Miocene and early Pliocene. The oceans themselves began to reshape. Vast shallows that once teemed with prey species began to drain away, coastlines retreated, and the great continental shelves, once nurseries for life, were exposed to the air. For the giants of the sea, this shift was catastrophic. Megalodon, whose hunting strategy depended on warm, shallow seas, rich with whales and other marine mammals, suddenly found its favorite hunting grounds disappearing. Prey was forced to migrate into deeper, colder waters, where the massive shark's bulk became a disadvantage. The distribution of food narrowed, competition intensified, and survival became less about domination and more about adaptation. Smaller predators could adjust more quickly, slipping into new niches, while the largest of hunters struggled with their own scale. Dropping sea levels meant less space for young to be raised in safety, fewer coastlines to serve as nurseries, and more vulnerability to other rising predators. In the end, shrinking oceans didn't just change geography. They changed the balance of power in the food chain. And for the once unstoppable megalodon, every centimeter of falling shoreline was another step toward decline. Prey on the move, whale migrations toward colder waters as the climate shifted and oceans cooled. In the late Miocene and into the Pliocene, the very rhythm of marine life began to change. The great whales, which had flourished in the warmth of earlier ages, now followed new patterns dictated by the shifting temperature gradients of the seas. Colder waters brought with them rich upwellings of nutrients, feeding plankton blooms and drawing vast schools of fish, krill, and squid. In turn, these fertile currents lured the whales, encouraging them to migrate further and further toward the poles in search of sustenance. Where once they thrived in warm, shallow seas, they now embarked on long, seasonal journeys between breeding grounds and feeding grounds, traveling thousands of miles across the open ocean. This new way of life altered the very structure of marine ecosystems, creating predictable highways of prey that predators could exploit. The whales themselves grew larger in response, evolving into the titans we know today. Their massive size, an adaptation to store energy for long migrations and to take advantage of the abundant cold water food sources for the apex predators of the Miocene seas, such as the mighty Megalodon. This was both opportunity and challenge. On one hand, a steady flow of whale prey passed through their hunting territories. On the other, the whales no longer lingered year-round in the same regions, forcing predators to either adapt to the long chases or risk starvation. This shifting migration pattern would ultimately reshape the balance of power in the oceans. For coordinated hunters, like the ancestors of Orcus, it was a chance to learn the rhythm of migration, to intercept pods of whales as they moved along predictable routes. For solitary giants like Megalodon, it meant stretching further, roaming wider, burning more energy to keep up with prey that refused to stay still. The ocean itself had rewritten the rules of survival, and only those able to adjust to the migration of the whales would endure. Part 3. The end of an era. For millions of years, the Megalodon had ruled the seas, a predator without rival, a force of nature whose presence defined the very structure of marine ecosystems. Yet no reign, however mighty, lasts forever. As the late Miocene gave way to the Pliocene, the ocean itself seemed to conspire against the giant shark. Waters cooled further, polar ice expanded, sea levels dropped, and the warm, shallow nurseries where young megalodons once thrived began to vanish. Prey grew scarce, not in numbers, but in accessibility. Early whales became faster, leaner, more agile, and new predators arose, working in groups, harassing giants that once seemed untouchable. Orca-like ancestors learned to coordinate, to strike with precision, to exhaust rather than overpower. And against them, the solitary Megalodon, despite its colossal strength, began to falter. The very size that had once been its greatest advantage became its greatest burden, demanding oceans of food, demanding warmth, demanding a world that no longer existed. Fossil records suggest that the distribution of Megalodon shrank over time, retreating from the cooler latitudes, confined to warmer waters that grew fewer and farther between. Its presence, once global, became patchwork, fragmented, uncertain, and then, as the Pliocene climate continued to harden, the giant faded. No catastrophic event, no single battle or sudden end, but a slow dwindling, a quiet disappearance, written not in blood but in absence. The end of Megalodon was not marked by triumph or defeat, but by the silence that follows when a giant leaves the stage, a silence that echoes still in the deep, carried only in teeth, in vertebrae, in bite marks etched into fossilized bone. And yet, in that silence remains awe, for Megalodon was not merely an animal, it was an age, an era, a living monument to the oceans of deep time. Its passing marked the close of one chapter in Earth's story and the beginning of another, where intelligence, cooperation, and adaptability would take the crown once held by brute strength and unimaginable size. The end of an era was not the end of wonder, but its transformation, leaving behind mysteries that sleep in the fossil beds, waiting to remind us that even the mightiest are not eternal, and that every age of dominance eventually yields to change. The mystery of extinction, slow decline, not sudden death. When we think of extinction, we often imagine catastrophe, a sudden impact, a fiery event, a violent upheaval that erases life in an instant. But the story of the Megalodon is far quieter, and perhaps even more haunting. Its disappearance was not a single dramatic collapse, but a long fading, a slow unraveling, written in the changing patterns of Earth's climate and the shifting balance of marine life. Over hundreds of thousands of years, ocean temperatures dropped, reshaping migration routes and prey availability. Shallow, warm water nurseries dwindled, leaving young sharks vulnerable and fewer in number. Competition intensified as new predators emerged, ancestors of modern killer whales. With their intelligence and group hunting strategies, pressed into ecological spaces once held by the solitary giant. Early great whites, smaller and swifter, began to claim the same hunting grounds, targeting the same prey. Bit by bit, the megalodon's grip on the oceans weakened, not through any flaw of its own, but through the relentless push of evolution and environmental change. A predator that had once thrived in abundance found itself pushed into corners of the ocean where survival was no longer guaranteed. Generation after generation, their numbers thinned, their range contracted, until the last of them slipped silently into the depths, unmarked, unseen, leaving only fossils as evidence they ever lived at all. There was no single day the oceans lost their giant, only the slow dimming of a reign that had lasted for millions of years. And perhaps this is what makes the extinction of Megalodon so mysterious, so compelling. It is not the story of a cataclysm, but of time itself, wearing down even the greatest of predators, until nothing remained but echoes in stone. Climate cooling, oceans transform beyond recognition. The world continued to change, slowly at first, then with a momentum that seemed unstoppable. As the Miocene gave way to the Pliocene, the Earth's climate cooled in ways that transformed every corner of the oceans. Vast ice sheets began to expand at the poles, lowering sea levels and redrawing coastlines. Shallow seas that had once been warm nurseries for countless species drained away, leaving behind new land bridges, new migration routes, and new ecological barriers. Ocean currents shifted, driven by the widening gap between warm equatorial waters and the growing chill of the poles. Nutrient flows altered, sending rich upwellings into colder regions while leaving other seas barren in comparison. The marine highways of the past fractured, replaced by new routes, new obstacles, and new balances of life. Creatures that had thrived in stable warmth were forced to adapt or vanish, while new species seized the opportunities born of change. The whales, already moving toward colder feeding grounds, grew even larger to endure the long voyages between polar abundance and equatorial breeding zones. Their migrations lengthened, their bodies evolved, and with them the predators who depended upon them were forced into desperate adjustments. The once boundless playground of the megalodon worm, shallow and teeming with prey, was shrinking, replaced by deep, colder waters where its bulk was less efficient, where prey traveled in long, unpredictable cycles. This cooling era reshaped the very identity of the oceans. Coral reefs retreated, fish populations shifted, sharks competed with new rivals, and marine mammals learned strategies that would carry them into the modern age. For some, these changes were opportunities, but for others, they were the beginning of the end. The oceans, vast and eternal as they may seem, are never constant. They transform, they evolve, they erase and rebuild. And in the cooling seas of the late Miocene and Pliocene, The fate of giants was sealed not by tooth or by hunger, but by the steady, unstoppable force of climate itself. Disappearing nurseries, no safe havens for young Megalodon of the greatest challenges to Megalodon's survival came not from sudden predators, nor from a single climatic disaster, but from the steady, shifting movements of its prey. For millions of years, the oceans had been filled with early whales, plentiful, slower, and often hugging the warm, shallow waters where the Megalodon thrived. These seas were nurseries rich in life, offering the giant shark both abundance and opportunity. But as Earth cooled, the whales began to change their habits. New species emerged, capable of long migrations across entire oceans, diving deeper, ranging farther, and seeking food in colder waters where the Megalodon could not easily follow. What had once been steady hunting grounds became empty stretches of sea, where prey passed through only briefly or not at all. The very rhythm of the ocean shifted, and with it the balance of power. A predator so large, so finely tuned to warm seas and predictable migrations, suddenly found itself chasing ghosts. Energy that once sustained giants was now dispersed across vast, shifting routes, favoring predators who could adapt quickly and cover great distances with less demand for food. The Megalodon, bound by its sheer size and the requirements of its massive body, could not bend to this new order. The whales were not just moving away, they were evolving into forms and behaviors that escaped the reach of the ancient shark. In the silence of those changing waters, the Megalodon's dominion began to slip. Not through defeat in battle, but through absence, through emptiness, through prey that was no longer where it used to be. In the end, it was not teeth or strength that determined survival, but movement, migration, and the ability to adapt to a world in flux. And the whales, not the Megalodon, carried that advantage into the future. Changing prey migration, whales move beyond reach for millions of years. The Megalodon had ruled as the undisputed monarch of the seas, its size, power, and ferocity unmatched. Yet evolution had not prepared it for the quiet, relentless changes now unfolding in the oceans. Its vast body, built for ambush and domination in warm, shallow waters, was not suited to the colder, deeper, and more distant seas where prey was now gathering. The great whales, once plentiful in coastal waters, now migrated on long, sweeping routes that carried them far toward polar feeding grounds, where nutrient-rich upwellings created abundance. But these migrations required endurance, patience, and the ability to thrive in frigid waters. For Megalodon, adapted to warmth and efficiency in relatively stable hunting grounds, the chase grew harder with every passing age. To follow the whales meant burning immense energy, crossing vast distances, and surviving in waters where its physiology worked against it. Each hunt became more costly, each pursuit more uncertain as the whales slipped further from its grasp. Worse still, new predators were rising, smaller, more agile, more intelligent hunters, early ancestors of modern killer whales, moving in coordinated pods, learned to exploit the same whale migrations that had once been Megalodon's domain. They required less energy, they could cooperate, they could adapt to the changing seas in ways a solitary giant could not. The oceans that had once fed Megalodon endlessly now demanded impossible effort. The predator found itself trapped by its own size, by the very power that had once made it supreme. It could not shrink, it could not change fast enough, and so each generation grew weaker, more scattered, more desperate. The food was still there, vast and plentiful, but it moved along roads that the Megalodon could no longer walk, and in that silent imbalance lay thriving. Predator failing the fate of the greatest shark ever to live was quietly written in the cold salt water of a changing world. A predator trapped, unable to follow the food. The rise of rivals marks the beginning of the end for the Megalodon. For millions of years, it had reigned unchallenged, the undisputed ruler of the seas. Yet, in the late Miocene and Pliocene epochs, the oceans themselves were changing. Not only did the waters cool, but new hunters emerged to claim their share of the marine world. Among them were the ancestors of modern orcas, ancient toothed whales that learned the power of cooperation. Unlike the solitary Megalodon, these hunters thrived in groups. They moved like a coordinated fleet, surrounding prey, confusing it, exhausting it, and striking in unison. What the shark had in size and brute force, these early orca ancestors matched with intelligence and teamwork. Fossil records hint at this rising rivalry, scars on whale bones that show patterns of repeated bites, a signature of coordinated attacks. Where Megalodon relied on ambush and raw, crushing power, orca ancestors brought endurance, strategy, and adaptability. Warmer coastal waters, once nurseries for Megalodon pups, also provided havens for these emerging predators. And in these environments, young sharks were most vulnerable. A pod of smaller, faster hunters could overwhelm even a juvenile giant. Over time, these clashes rewrote the balance of power. The once solitary monarch of the seas faced opponents it could not easily overpower, not because of size, but because of numbers and coordination. The ocean was no longer a kingdom ruled by a single apex, but a battlefield of shared dominion. And in this shift, the seeds of Megalodon's decline were sown, as evolution favored those who could adapt and those who could outthink, not just outmuscle, the prey before them. The rise of rivals. Orca ancestors dominate warmer waters. The disappearance of an apex predator is never a quiet subtraction. It is a tremor that moves through every layer of the food web, a disruption whose ripples touch even the smallest plankton drifting in the currents. When the Megalodon faded from the seas, it was not just a single species lost, but an entire framework of balance undone. For millions of years, these giants kept populations of large marine mammals in check. Early whales, seals, and sea cows lived under the pressure of constant predation, their numbers controlled by the teeth of the ocean's ultimate hunter. Without Megalodon, those populations shifted, sometimes swelling, sometimes dispersing into new regions, altering the dynamics of migration routes and feeding grounds. Whales began to thrive in ways they had not before, and in their growth they reshaped the oceans, consuming more krill, traveling further, competing differently. Smaller sharks, once cautious, now swam with greater freedom, expanding into niches once occupied by their colossal cousin. Yet even this expansion had consequences. For, with more predators, came new pressures on fish populations. And with altered prey numbers came shifts in plankton blooms and nutrient cycles. The loss of one giant cascaded down into countless smaller changes, unseen but profound. This is the fragile truth of ecosystems. Each piece supports the whole, and when the top is removed, everything below must realign. For the world, that realignment was not immediate destruction, but a gradual rebalancing, one that gave rise to the modern ocean we know today. The absence of the giant did not empty the seas, but it reshaped them forever, proving that extinction is not just an ending, it is a transformation, a rewriting of life's script across the currents of time. Ecosystem collapse, chain reactions. In marine life, fin the quiet sands of ancient seabeds, the story of Megalodon begins to blur, its presence fading into the sediment of time. The fossil record, once marked by abundant teeth scattered across oceans worldwide, begins to thin as the Pliocene epoch advances. Teeth, those indestructible markers of a predator's existence, remain the most common relic of its reign. Their serrated edges, still sharp after millions of years, whisper of jaws that once commanded the seas. Yet, as the epochs progress, the frequency of these teeth diminishes, appearing in fewer and fewer layers of rock, signaling a slow and inevitable decline. Vertebrae, already rare in the fossil record, nearly vanish, leaving little behind to map the full skeleton of this immense shark. What we do find are hints, fragments, impressions in stone that suggest its passing rather than proclaim its dominance. Each fossil discovery is like a fading echo, a reminder of a time when the oceans trembled beneath its shadow. Paleontologists note the disappearance with quiet certainty. After roughly 3.6 million years ago, the giant is gone. Its last traces coincide with the rise of new marine hunters, smaller, faster, more adaptable species, including the ancestors of modern killer whales. The oceans themselves had shifted, currents had changed, prey had moved, and the giant predator could not keep pace with a world transformed. What remains is not a complete body, not a preserved skeleton, but a puzzle of scattered evidence. A tooth here, a vertebra there, a bite mark etched into ancient whalebone. Together they paint the outline of a creature so immense, so powerful, that its absence is as striking as its presence once was. The fading fossil record is less a tomb and more a silence, an unfinished sentence in Earth's deep history. And in that silence lies the mystery that keeps Megalodon alive in human imagination. Did it truly vanish, swallowed by time and change, or does its legend endure because the ocean itself is too vast, too deep, to ever reveal all of its secrets? The fossil record fades. Last traces of the giant shark. When we uncover a Megalodon tooth, gleaming after millions of years entombed in stone, the question is not only what it belonged to, but when. How do we place this relic on the grand calendar of Earth's history? The answer lies in the science of dating fossils, a patient art that combines geology, chemistry, and time itself. Layers of sediment, built one atop the other, like pages in a book, give us the first clues. By studying the rock surrounding a fossil, scientists can read its chapter in Earth's story, knowing that the deeper the layer, the older its secrets. But sediment alone is not enough. For precision, researchers turn to isotopes, the slow decay of radioactive elements that act like natural clocks, ticking silently for millions of years. Carbon is too short-lived for creatures as ancient as Megalodon, so scientists look instead to uranium, strontium, and other isotopes embedded in marine deposits. These chemical signatures anchor fossils in time, sometimes to within a few tens of thousands of years, an extraordinary feat when the scale runs to millions. Even the fossilized teeth themselves carry information. The enamel can trap isotopes from seawater, recording both age and ancient ocean chemistry, like a time capsule sealed in mineral. With these methods, we know that Megalodon thrived from roughly 23 million years ago, during the Miocene epoch, until about 3.6 million years ago, in the Pliocene. The range is vast, spanning the rise and fall of countless species, yet precise enough to tell us that its reign ended long before humans walked the earth. It is through these careful techniques, repeated across sites and samples around the globe, that we can trace the arc of this predator's existence, from its mysterious rise to its slow decline. Fossil dating is, in a sense, the clockmaker of paleontology, allowing us not only to know that Megalodon lived, but when and for how long it ruled the seas. The science of dating fossils. How we know the timeline. The polar seas, though rich in food, were also merciless. These waters, churning with cold currents and seasonal ice, created an environment where only the well-adapted could endure. Whales evolved thick layers of insulating blubber, immense energy reserves, and complex migratory behaviors that allowed them to move with the rhythms of the seasons. Smaller predators adapted with speed, cooperation, and flexibility, learning to strike in packs and to thrive where resources shifted with the tides. But Megalodon, for all its dominance, was locked into the blueprint of its own body. Its metabolism demanded warmth, its hunting strategies depended on clear ambush points, and its size required enormous amounts of energy simply to survive. In the frozen waters near the poles, its massive body would have cooled too quickly, forcing it to expend even more energy just to function. The rich feeding grounds were there, but the cost of reaching and surviving in them outweighed the benefits. Each attempt to follow the whales into colder regions drained its strength, and each retreat back into warmer seas left it with fewer opportunities. Evolution had granted it unmatched power in one world, but little flexibility in the new one now emerging. Unlike whales or smaller sharks, Megalodon could not adapt its physiology in just a few million years. It was a giant, built for a time of warmth, trapped in a planet now cooling. The polar waters, filled with promise of endless prey, became an unreachable treasure, close enough to glimpse, but forever out of reach. And in that unreachable distance lay the beginning of its downfall. Why Megalodon couldn't survive in polar waters for as long as humans have known the name Megalodon. We've wondered if it might still be out there, somewhere in the unexplored reaches of the deep, a remnant of prehistory, lurking just beyond our sonar and cameras. Stories of massive shadows beneath boats, giant teeth washed ashore, and vanishing whales have all fueled the myth of survival. But science tells a different story. The oceans, vast as they are, leave traces of their giants. Whales wash up, squid leave marks, sharks shed teeth throughout their lives. If Megalodon still roamed the seas, the evidence would be impossible to hide. We would find fresh teeth on the sea floor, DNA fragments in the water, or corpses carried by currents to distant shores. Yet every single piece of hard evidence dates back at least 2.6 million years. Not one confirmed fossil, younger than that has ever been found. And the deep sea, while mysterious, is not a limitless void. It has ecosystems, food chains, and boundaries. A predator as massive as Megalodon would need enormous amounts of food, entire populations of whales, and large fish to sustain itself. No such disruptions exist in modern oceans. Instead, we see balanced ecosystems shaped by great whites, orcas, and other apex predators. In this balance, there is no room for a hidden giant. The myth persists because the idea is alluring. The thought that somewhere the ancient still survives, watching from the dark. But the truth is quieter and perhaps more meaningful. The Megalodon had its time, and its reign was immense. Today, what remains are the fossils, the stories, and the reminder that even the mightiest hunters eventually pass into history. Debunking survival myths. Why no modern evidence exists. For as long as humans have known the name Megalodon, we've wondered if it might still be out there, somewhere in the unexplored reaches of the deep, a remnant of prehistory lurking just beyond our sonar and cameras. Stories of massive shadows beneath boats, giant teeth washed ashore, and vanishing whales have all fueled the myth of survival. But science tells a different story. The oceans, vast as they are, leave traces of their giants. Whales wash up, squid leave marks, sharks shed teeth throughout their lives. If Megalodon still roamed the seas, the evidence would be impossible to hide. We would find fresh teeth on the sea floor, DNA fragments in the water, or corpses carried by currents to distant shores. Yet every single piece of hard evidence dates back at least 2.6 million years. Not one confirmed fossil younger than that has ever been found. And the deep sea, while mysterious, is not a limitless void. It has ecosystems, food chains, and boundaries. A predator as massive as Megalodon would need enormous amounts of food, entire populations of whales, and large fish to sustain itself. No such disruptions exist in modern oceans. Instead, we see balanced ecosystems shaped by great whites, orcas, and other apex predators. In this balance, there is no room for a hidden giant. The myth persists because the idea is alluring. The thought that somewhere the ancient still survives, watching from the dark. But the truth is quieter and perhaps more meaningful. The Megalodon had its time, and its reign was immense. Today, what remains are the fossils, the stories, and the reminder that even the mightiest hunters eventually pass into history. The power of stories, from ancient sailors to modern films, long after the Megalodon slipped into extinction. Its shadow lingered, not in flesh and bone, but in memory and imagination. Ancient sailors spoke of sea monsters that could swallow ships whole, tales told around fires, or whispered across rolling decks under the stars. They did not know the name Megalodon, but they felt the weight of something vast beneath the waves, something unseen yet deeply feared. Perhaps their myths were echoes of fossils discovered on distant shores, great teeth mistaken for the tongues of dragons or relics of gods. As centuries passed, science began to unearth the truth, giving names and measurements to the giants of prehistory. Yet the mystery never fully dissolved. Instead, it transformed into stories that blended fact with awe. Writers filled pages with visions of colossal sharks prowling the deep, while films projected their silhouettes against vast blue screens, bringing to life the terror and majesty of a predator that no longer swims but still stalks the human imagination. Each retelling adds to a lineage of myth, proof that even extinction cannot silence a creature so immense. The Megalodon lives on in our collective consciousness, not only as a fossil, but as a symbol of power, of fear, of the unknown that waits just beyond the horizon of light. And in this way, the giant's reign never truly ended. It simply shifted from ocean to story, from predator to legend, carried forward in the tales we tell and the dreams that follow us into sleep. Popular myths. The living Megalodon. In the Mariana Trench, though science tells us that Megalodon disappeared millions of years ago, stories of its survival continue to circle through imagination and folklore. The most enduring of these myths places the great shark not in the open oceans we know today, but hidden in the deepest and most inaccessible places on Earth. Chief among them, the Mariana Trench. This abyss, stretching nearly 7 miles into the Pacific, has long been a canvas for human fear and wonder. Its crushing darkness, its alien life, its uncharted reaches all make it a fitting refuge for a creature thought too powerful, too perfect to truly vanish. In whispered tales and speculative documentaries, the Megalodon is said to linger. Here, an ancient shadow that escaped extinction by retreating into the cold, the dark, the eternal silence below. Some claim modern fishermen have seen massive shadows beneath their boats, too large to be whales. Others tell of sonar readings that reveal something moving, something vast, something unexplainable, before vanishing into the depths. The myth persists because the trench itself resists certainty. Humans have explored only a fraction of it, and what little we know suggests there is far more that remains unseen. If giant squid can thrive in such extremes, some wonder, why not a predator from prehistory? The thought is haunting and oddly comforting at once that somewhere below, a fragment of the ancient world still lives, untouched by time. Science reminds us that the conditions of the trench, low temperatures, limited food, immense pressure, would make survival nearly impossible for a warm-water giant like Megalodon. Yet myths endure, not because they are probable, but because they speak to our desire for mystery, our yearning to believe the past is never fully gone. In the quiet of the night, as we drift toward sleep, the image lingers, a colossal fin cutting through unseen waters, a mouth lined with serrated blades of bone-white enamel, gliding silently where no human eye can follow, whether real or not. The living Megalodon of the Mariana Trench is a story that refuses to die, echoing through culture like the heartbeat of an ocean secret we are not meant to solve. Science versus fiction. What the evidence really shows: for every fossil there is a fact, and for every fact there is a story that people long to stretch into legend. The Megalodon is no exception. Popular culture paints it alive today, hiding in the blackest waters, waiting to strike. Movies and novels breathe life into this fantasy, imagining a beast untouched by extinction. Yet science, ever patient, strips away the shadows and replaces them with evidence. Fossils do not lie. The youngest Megalodon teeth ever discovered date to roughly 2.6 million years ago. After that, the trail goes cold. No new deposits, no fresh remains, no living giants to be found. If such a predator still swam our seas, its presence would ripple across ecosystems. Whole pods of whales would vanish without explanation, food webs would collapse under the strain of its appetite. Instead, we see a stable ocean ruled by modern predators like great whites and orcas. Fiction asks us to imagine, what if? But science asks us to measure, to test, to prove. The result is clear. Megalodon was real, but it is gone. And yet the fascination endures. Because myth offers what evidence cannot. The thrill of the unknown. The whisper that maybe, just maybe, there's something left to discover. Science reminds us that the giant belongs to history, while fiction ensures it never leaves our imagination. Together, they create a dual legacy, one of fact and fossil, and one of wonder and possibility. Legacy in the oceans, the blueprint for future predators. Though the Megalodon vanished from Earth's oceans millions of years ago, its legacy did not disappear with it. Instead, it carved a blueprint, a design of what it meant to be an apex predator. Its massive jaws, serrated teeth, and dominance over early whales showed how size and strength could shape entire ecosystems. Yet its eventual extinction revealed something just as important, that even the greatest hunters must adapt or yield to change. In the wake of Megalodon's reign, other predators rose to fill the vacuum it left behind. The great white shark, smaller but faster, became one of the ocean's most formidable hunters. Orcas, with their intelligence and teamwork, took the role of master strategists, coordinating in ways brute strength never could. Both carry echoes of the Megalodon, the same hunger for dominance, the same evolutionary pressure to control. The seas, in many ways, the ocean itself remembers the giant. The teeth scattered across ancient seabeds, the bite marks etched into fossilized bones, all tell a story of power, survival, and loss. And this story continues, written into the DNA of the predators that followed. Each generation of hunter, from the swift mako to the cunning orca, carries a shadow of the Megalodon's blueprint, refined by time, shaped by shifting seas. Its disappearance was not just an end, but a turning point, teaching evolution that speed, intelligence, and adaptability can rival size and power. In this way, the Megalodon still swims through our modern oceans, not in flesh and blood, but in the design of the predators that rule the waters today. A giant gone, yet never truly erased. Lessons in extinction. The fragility of apex predators. Extinction often feels like a distant concept, a fate reserved for creatures long forgotten. But the story of the Megalodon reminds us that even the mightiest are not immune. For millions of years, it ruled without rival, shaping the balance of life in the oceans. Yet when climates cooled, when coastlines shifted, when new predators rose to hunt in packs, even this giant could not endure. Its size, once its greatest advantage, became a burden when food grew scarce. Its dominance, once unchallenged, offered no shield against change. This is the quiet truth of evolution. No predator, no matter how powerful, is permanent. The disappearance of the Megalodon teaches us that the top of the food chain is not a throne, but a fragile position, dependent on the stability of everything beneath it. When the smallest fish vanish, when oceans warm or cool, when prey migrates or declines, even giants can fall. Today, we see this lesson repeating. Modern apex predators, sharks, whales, orcas, all face new pressures from shifting climates and human influence. The extinction of the Megalodon whispers a warning through time. Power does not guarantee survival. Adaptation does. Balance does. And when that balance is broken, fragility reveals itself in even the strongest forms of life. The Megalodon's end is not only a story of the past, it is a mirror held to the present, and perhaps to our own future. The impact on human imagination. Why we dream of monsters. The Megalodon may be gone, but in the human mind it has never truly vanished. Its teeth, large enough to fit in the palm of a hand, spark something deep within us. Awe, fear, curiosity. We imagine what it would feel like to swim beside a creature the size of a school bus, to see those serrated jaws closing in silence through dark water. We dream of monsters, not only because they terrify us, but because they remind us of the scale of nature itself. The Megalodon is proof that the world once held beings so immense that they bend our sense of reality. In stories, films, and myths, it survives as a phantom, a symbol of the deep unknown that still waits beneath the waves. Our fascination is not only about danger, it is about possibility. To imagine the Megalodon is to imagine a world larger, wilder, less tamed than the one we know. A reminder that the ocean holds secrets and that we are small within them. Perhaps this is why we create monsters in our minds, to measure ourselves against something greater, to keep alive the mystery that fuels both fear and wonder. The Megalodon's extinction closed one chapter of history, but in imagination it writes countless new ones, carrying forward the eternal question, what still lurks in the depths we have not yet seen? Megalodon's cultural afterlife, books, movies, and documentaries. Though the Megalodon vanished millions of years ago, in culture it remains very much alive. From pulp novels to blockbuster movies, from whispered legends to late-night documentaries, the giant shark has been reborn in countless forms. Writers imagine it lurking in hidden trenches. Directors bring it crashing onto beaches in dramatic waves of suspense, and audiences lean forward, equal parts afraid and fascinated. The Megalodon has become more than an animal of prehistory. It is a symbol of the deep unknown, of nature's unmatched scale, of fear wrapped in curiosity. In books, it often appears as the ultimate predator, rising from extinction to challenge modern humans. In films, it becomes spectacle, a shadow under the boat, a sudden force from below. And in documentaries, the tone shifts to quiet awe, as paleontologists hold fossil teeth against their palms and reconstruct a world that no longer exists. Each retelling reshapes the Megalodon, turning fossil evidence into myth, science into story. And yet, behind the fiction, there remains a kernel of truth. This creature really did swim in ancient seas, really did bite through bone, really did command the oceans for millions of years. Its cultural afterlife reveals something about us as well, our need to revisit the past, to summon monsters from memory, to give form to our own deepest questions about the ocean. The Megalodon, in imagination, is immortal, a giant that lives on wherever stories are told, books are read, or screens flicker in the dark. What fossils teach us? The value of the past in the present fossils are not just remnants of stone, not just fragments of creatures long gone. They are messages pressed into time, carried forward across millions of years. Each tooth of a Megalodon, each vertebra uncovered in ancient sediment, is a page in a book the earth has been writing since before humans existed. From these fragments, we learn not only about size and power, but about ecosystems, climates, and balances that once were. Fossils show us a planet in motion, seas rising and falling, species flourishing and fading. They teach us that dominance in nature is never permanent, that even the mightiest predator can vanish when conditions shift, and in that truth lies value for the present. Today, we live in a world changing faster than many species can endure. Fossils remind us that extinction is not an abstract event, but a natural consequence of imbalance, one that has happened countless times before. By studying the past, we glimpse our own possible futures. We learn humility, realizing that humanity's time is but a moment in a much longer story. And we gain perspective, seeing in every fossil a warning and a wonder that life is resilient, but also fragile. The megalodon's teeth, now resting in museums or tucked away in private collections, are not just relics, they are guides. They tell us that the ocean remembers, that the earth remembers, and that our choices will one day be etched in stone for others to find. In this way, fossils are not only about the past, they are lessons for the present, and perhaps the only voices that can reach across time to remind us how to live with the world. Lessons in extinction. The fragility of apex predators. Extinction often feels like a distant concept, a fate reserved for creatures long forgotten. But the story of the megalodon reminds us that even the mightiest are not immune. For millions of years, it ruled without rival, shaping the balance of life in the oceans. Yet when climates cooled, when coastlines shifted, when new predators rose to hunt in packs, even this giant could not endure. Its size, once its greatest advantage, became a burden when food grew scarce. Its dominance, once unchallenged, offered no shield against change. This is the quiet truth of evolution. No predator, no matter how powerful, is permanent. The disappearance of the megalodon teaches us that the top of the food chain is not a throne, but a fragile position, dependent on the stability of everything beneath it. When the smallest fish vanish, when oceans warm or cool, when prey migrates or declines, even giants can fall. Today, we see this lesson repeating. Modern apex predators, sharks, whales, orcas, all face new pressures from shifting climates and human influence. The extinction of the megalodon whispers a warning through time. Power does not guarantee survival. Adaptation does. Balance does. And when that balance is broken, fragility reveals itself in even the strongest forms of life. The megalodon's end is not only a story of the past, it is a mirror held to the present, and perhaps to our own future. The impact on human imagination, why we dream of monsters. The megalodon may be gone, but in the human mind it has never truly vanished. Its teeth, large enough to fit in the palm of a hand, spark something deep within us. Awe, fear, curiosity. We imagine what it would feel like to swim beside a creature the size of a school bus, to see those serrated jaws closing in silence through dark water. We dream of monsters, not only because they terrify us, but because they remind us of the scale of nature itself. The megalodon is proof that the world once held beings so immense that they bend our sense of reality. In stories, films, and myths, it survives as a phantom, a symbol of the deep unknown that still waits beneath the waves. Our fascination is not only about danger, it is about possibility. To imagine the Megalodon is to imagine a world larger, wilder, less tamed than the one we know. A reminder that the ocean holds secrets and that we are small within them. Perhaps this is why we create monsters in our minds, to measure ourselves against something greater, to keep alive the mystery that fuels both fear and wonder. The Megalodon's extinction closed one chapter of history, but in imagination it writes countless new ones, carrying forward the eternal question, what still lurks in the depths we have not yet seen? Megalodon's cultural afterlife, books, movies, and documentaries. Though the Megalodon vanished millions of years ago, in culture it remains very much alive. From pulp novels to blockbuster movies, from whispered legends to late-night documentaries, the giant shark has been reborn in countless forms. Writers imagine it lurking in hidden trenches. Directors bring it crashing onto beaches in dramatic waves of suspense, and audiences lean forward, equal parts afraid and fascinated. The Megalodon has become more than an animal of prehistory. It is a symbol of the deep unknown, of nature's unmatched scale, of fear wrapped in curiosity. In books, it often appears as the ultimate predator, rising from extinction to challenge modern humans. In films, it becomes spectacle, a shadow under the boat, a sudden force from below. And in documentaries, the tone shifts to quiet awe, as paleontologists hold fossil teeth against their palms and reconstruct a world that no longer exists. Each retelling reshapes the Megalodon, turning fossil evidence into myth, science into story. And yet, behind the fiction, there remains a kernel of truth. This creature really did swim in ancient seas, really did bite through bone, really did command the oceans for millions of years. Its cultural afterlife reveals something about us as well, our need to revisit the past, to summon monsters from memory, to give form to our own deepest questions about the ocean. The Megalodon, in imagination, is immortal, a giant that lives on wherever stories are told, books are read, or screens flicker in the dark. What fossils teach us? The value of the past in the present fossils are not just remnants of stone, not just fragments of creatures long gone. They are messages pressed into time, carried forward across millions of years. Each tooth of a Megalodon, each vertebra uncovered in ancient sediment, is a page in a book the earth has been writing since before humans existed. From these fragments, we learn not only about size and power, but about ecosystems, climates, and balances that once were. Fossils show us a planet in motion, seas rising and falling, species flourishing and fading. They teach us that dominance in nature is never permanent, that even the mightiest predator can vanish when conditions shift, and in that truth lies value for the present. Today, we live in a world changing faster than many species can endure. Fossils remind us that extinction is not an abstract event, but a natural consequence of imbalance, one that has happened countless times before. By studying the past, we glimpse our own possible futures. We learn humility, realizing that humanity's time is but a moment in a much longer story. And we gain perspective, seeing in every fossil a warning and a wonder that life is resilient, but also fragile. The Megalodon's teeth, now resting in museums or tucked away in private collections, are not just relics, they are guides. They tell us that the ocean remembers, that the earth remembers, and that our choices will one day be etched in stone for others to find. In this way, fossils are not only about the past, they are lessons for the present, and perhaps the only voices that can reach across time to remind us how to live with the world.